right, up next is a panel discussion on the topic, CX starts with EX. We have some stellar panelists for this group discussion. Let me invite the moderator of this discussion, Lead User Experience and Design, IBM Consulting, India, South Asia, Mr. 𝗂𝗶𝗁𝗆. Let's welcome him with a big hand. We will now invite the panelists, Head CS, KCG, VAS and NBS, Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited, Mr. Rajeev Kharyal. VP Customer Service, Operation and CX CBO, Vodafone India Limited, Mr. Taj Anwar. Senior Vice President, Head of Customer Engagement Network, Axis Bank, Mr. Parag Deshpande. And the applause continues. Group CIO, SAR Group, Mr. Saurabh Gupta. And Director Business, India and SAARC, Freshworks, Mr. Prakash, Bharath. Warm welcome, gentlemen. And I request the moderator, Mr. 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏𝗧𝗏, to please take this ahead.
Nice having everyone here. We're going to flip the switch a little bit now. We've heard CX, 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 CX. We're going to look at something that was a blind spot for the longest period of time, which was employee experience. And what I'd like to hear from all of you is, when did your organization understand the importance of employee experience? And what are the initiatives that what are the first initiatives that you started? What is the impact that it has made? Anyone can start.
So I think it's, we always realize that, when you start a business, unless you enable your front channel, you're not going to be, doing a justice to what you have implemented. The challenge with the Indian market is that, my current organization has launched the product variants that my previous organization had not launched in 5 years, and that's a multinational. So the growth pains are tremendous, right? So we're always lagging on training our front channels good enough to be able to do that. That is the challenge area which we are chasing, that part of it. So how do we enable? I mean, today if you think about a digital initiative, your digital heads will think that it's digital only, right? And mobile only. And I'll not have anybody coming to my branch, or I'm from Axis Bank, so I'll talk about branch or contact center. But that doesn't happen. Happy path is okay, but unhappy path, they're going to call, or they're going to go to the branch. Have you thought about those scenarios of an unhappy path, thought about it in advance, and told your front channels that what do you do in that case? I think that level of maturity is still work in progress.
I'm very glad that we are talking about this today, because I was one of the early tech support reps in India, right? I was one responsible for making a few of the Americans and Trump Mr. very angry, because we took their jobs away. So that's how I started my career. And back in the days when I used to be a support rep myself, I had a lot of issues, right? But I never had a forum to even discuss about it. That's how those things started. So I'm very glad that we are talking about it today. And I'm also very fortunate that I work in an organization called Freshworks, which from day one has been employee-centric in its approach, right? So as a company, and even our CIO has mentioned it in multiple forums, that for him it always the employees, customers, and shareholders in that particular order, right? So from day one, we have been an employee-centric organization. So I don't think we differentiated our customers or employees differently. We look at it at one single spectrum.
Hi, so I think, so I represent a traditional business, and what I have seen over the past, let's say 10-15 years is this transition where organization focus on EX is basically happened because when we started seeing that we are not able to retain talent, we are not able to get good quality of technological and that's forced us to look into areas, how do we enable our employee experience better. And I think over a period of time, there is a significant shift even in traditional organizations, where organizations are looking at how do you retain good talent, how do you get good talent, and that is what is forcing all of us to improve the EX. As far as I think some of the things I think that organizations like us, what we have done is enable these appreciations day, celebrating small successes, celebrating small failures, which has enabled a lot of engagement within the employees and enabled us to retain good talent, also get good talent from the market, which I think was very difficult for us earlier.
Okay, so I think employee, when we say EX or employee satisfaction, I think that is not a new thing for organizations, whether it is an old organizations of some 100 years, 50 years, or even the new organization as well. What is the new part to it is the EX that we talk about in relation to CX, which is the employee experience, and how will an employee experience help in the customer experience part of it. And that's the convergence of both the experiences. So I won't say that how it started and when it started in an organization. I think that's the very grain of any company, whether it is an HR team or even any people manager, to take care of their people and employees. But when it comes to the CX part of it, I think some things like what we have done, or a lot of organizations would have done, is how you start celebrating customer successes with the employee successes. So tomorrow you start appreciating your employees when they have done something good for the customer. When you start appreciating the fixes that the employees would have done for customer journeys. And that's where you are able to converge the CX with an EX. You start saying that, yes, I recognize you because you have been able to help my customer. I am able to take care of you because you have been able to take care of my customer. So that's when the EX and the CX start getting converged. Some of the things that the organization, at least from where I come from, is in terms of, there are a lot of things that you do in terms of innovations and celebrating ideas, implementing those ideas and evaluating them in different quarterly, half-yearly, yearly, and then you reward them. You have these smaller things like Kaizens and all that, but it's the theme is about that when you start celebrating the CX in line with the customer, the employee happiness is where the converging is happening more.
All right. I think Taj and Saurabh, you touched on a small point about HR, and I actually wanted an HR person in this discussion just to know whether HR is separated from the employee experience, or are they part of it as well? Because in my opinion, I think that HR should also be somewhat integrated into designing experiences for your employees. What are your thoughts on that?
The way HR is contributing, for sure, I mean, there are the BAU stuff that HR does in terms of, it's a very important one, but from an employee experience standpoint, if they are able to do their job well, when nobody comes into the customer service world saying that today I'm going to, make my customer unhappy. They want to do a great job. The way HR is helping is really bringing newer and newer LMS, learning management system that are there, in terms of in contact center world, going from a classroom-based training to really simulator-based training, and those apprenticeship that in my previous organization we used to have. Those concepts are coming in. Those are driven by HR, and I think HR is doing a significant amount of their bit to bring in that, enablement aspect, right? Because many times you run the business, you're not the best at, you're not an expert on enabling the employees, and you are basically looking after how do I make sure that my customer journeys are frictionless, how do I have a better upsell, cross-sell. These are your day-to-day stuff, and at the functional level I can think about enablement, but the overall enablement of an employee is something that HR is definitely contributing significantly.
I think one point that you just touched on is building some capability for an employee to help them improve their efficiency is important. But understanding the usability aspect of it is extremely important. Like you said, that you might know what functional capabilities it needs to have, but I think we've seldom put as much focus on understanding our employees as potential users as we have for customers. How has that changed? And do you have any example where that's changed in your organization, where you build capabilities but by understanding the employees' needs?
So I'll take that question. See, first, in fact, even during the presentations also that we had the entire day till now, as well, we keep on saying what the customer is that they feel about it, they want it. So there's no they, it's all about we, because we are also a customer. Maybe for not that same brand, but for all other brands. So we are an employee in X company and a customer for everyone. So, so the usability is when it comes to developing the people towards the next technology or the what is in demand. I think there has been a complete transformation that we see today, at least to our HR teams. It is no more a toll gate keepers, which is only at the time of entry and exit. Your job interview and the exit interview, it's no more about that. And of course, some payslip glitches. So it's not about that. It's about that it has evolved to a time when you understand using various tools there, and you have people like, when he said about the life coach, and there are people who have that expertise. You evaluate your own employees, and basis that there are tailor-made products, tailor-made courses, tailor-made projects which are available, and that's where the HR team and the other people management team is able to invest to bring up the learning curve of our staff, whether it is the last mile, the people who are actually taking calls or answering our emails, or even the ones who are sitting in the glass cabins and the CXOs as well. So I think that's a complete transformation onto that, and most importantly, you have to experience it as a product, as a customer. I think life insurance is the only product where you can only experience it after you reach heaven or hell, basis your work. But for all other products, you can experience it on the earth, right? So as a customer, as an employee, first experience the product. The moment you experience your product and services, you'll be able to better contribute.
So I just integrate the last two questions together, like to make you on the HR front and the customer and the employee. Largely, if you see that it's basically human capital on the behind the scene, whether he's playing a role of a customer or an employee or a HR. So just to give you an analogy, because I'm an analogy innovationalist on the life coach, where we say that if you simply understand power system, it's very simple that you run a three-phase machine or load, whether it is lift or in the industry, and if your electrician is a right electrician, he'll put a balance to air conditioners in all three phases. Then the neutral will have a zero current. There will be no imbalance among three phase which flows into the neutral. And by the way, if your electrician puts one phase 3 AC, another 2 and 1 in the last, it's a heavy current in the neutral. So it's an imbalancing load. Similarly, the machine which we are talking as human capital, it has body, mind and soul. So it's have a IQ because of the body, it has EQ because of the mind, and it has a SQ because of the soul. So these are the three phases which this machine runs. And once you run this machine on equilibrium, now you see over the last 70 years how the IQ has grown, the Harvard has grown, and this Ivy League are coming. They are more harping on IQ. There were the times when our parents used to send us, 9 days of Navratras, where we used to see the EQ factor, why a mantra in 2 days has influenced the 𝗘𝗶𝗁, why Duryodhan is in the clutches of the other part of it, and why the people, Duryodhan is not impacted by Lord Krishna when this Mama Shukni is there. So the EQ factors have been grown in those years. Somehow this phase is depleting, and this machine is becoming imbalanced. And moment I say imbalance, it's basically a mind imbalance. So unless we grow our children and employees, when the customers are coming, they are coming with some imbalance. Either he's not satisfied with the service, or emotionally he has not been dealt rightly. So one of the phase is going back. When that experience has come back, it is the employee, if his all three phases are balanced, he can handle that customer very well. Whether it is the quality of service, whether it is an emotional connect, whether it is a social connect. So the moral of the story is that if we have to run this machine of balance, we should have a social awareness, we should have emotional alertness, and the bottom line, every professional in the corporate is intelligent in his own sphere, whether it is a doctor, engineer, or a chartered accountant. So this kind of a balance has to be there if we have to keep the experience best, because the mind then only will get a good experience if all three are done well, and that's the way we are looking at. Thank you.
So Gavin, I'll give you a very small example. So 𝗧𝗵𝗿 is one of our group companies where we sell water as a subscription. So that organization wanted to start a referral programs for our customers. And before starting it for customers, we launched it for our internal 5,000 employees. And we got a lot of feedback because how are they getting paid when they create a lead for referral program, anybody goes and attend and all. So that kind of experience from the employees helped us in designing that referral program overall for the 𝗧𝗵𝗿 business. And that made the program successful. If we would have launched it, let's say, directly without any insight from the internal customers which we had to see the end-to-end program, I think it might not have been successful in our case.
I think one more point I wanted to make is that I'm going to talk about a customer-centric culture later in the session, but one of the thing is the EX really, HR can play a huge role, and also the capabilities is identifying the people who are customer-centric, right, and then promoting them inside the organization. In a banking world or in a financial services world, how many organizations have the senior leaders, I'm talking about the really senior leaders, who take pride in saying that I used to take calls when I started my career. I mean, BPO almost has a, kind of a industry which is looked upon with a little bit of a different aspect here. But in my previous organization, there were so many people who started their career taking calls.
On the ground, basically.
On the ground. And they knew customers more than anyone else. How can we bring those people in the forefront? I mean, I'll take example of city phone officers, right? City has got senior people in India who used to be city phone officers. I think that is the enablement that we need. How we can break those, the ceilings or whatever you want to call it, and we come out of those perceptions and bring people who are right for the organization. That is one area where HR can play and plays a huge role, started playing, because creating those career paths, making sure that you have a contact center agent, he works there for 18 months, then goes to a branch banking RM, okay, then he goes into perhaps a back office, goes into somewhere else in IT support, or you can imagine you will be able to retain at least for 36 months, in my opinion. And there your retention problems can also be resolved.
I think that's a very interesting point, and brings me to my next thing. In terms of engagement, is there anything interesting that you have come across or done that has built that kind of engagement with your employees, whether it's a gamification methodology or something that keeps people motivated intrinsically?
Get it. So probably I'll take this question first. So see, when it comes to employee experience, like you said, this gamification, fun, all of this is extremely important, right? In fact, in our organization, we have these popcorn Fridays, we have movie nights, we actually play games, we have foosball, you name it, everything is there. But behind all this, if you need a very engaged employee, you want them to be heard, right? You want to make sure you hear what your employee has to say. So we have a very interesting platform within our company wherein we allow them to share their feedback anonymously, right? It's very important because most of the times when you put the mic or when you put a feedback form in front of them, they are not openly giving their opinions, right? So we have this anonymous platform. Sometimes we get funny feedback like, who killed 𝗬𝗵𝗆, right? Was it 𝗘𝗶𝗁, somebody else? Sometimes people ask questions like, do we have salt and buttermilk? But a lot of times, very important decisions in our company, or probably the most important feedback about processes, are heard from these frontline employees because they are very close to what's happening in reality, right? So they are the first best critics also for your company, right? You don't have to necessarily have your analysts or your customers talking about your problems. It's best we hear it from them. So that's a very interesting practice that we have in our company, and that's really helping us.
So again, as what I was saying some time back when we were talking about gamifications and how you're keeping the employees engaged. So once again, I was saying that while the employee engagement and everything is something which has been there for quite some time and will continue and slowly enhance, but how it is linking to the customer experience part of it is when you start linking it with the customer experience and you don't make it an independent affair. The moment you do that, you find everyone thinking that how can he contribute to the customer experience part of it. And some of the things that are there, of course, there are a large scale appreciations or recognition that are there at a company-wide level, a state-wide level, and so on. A beautiful thing which has also been done is about where you can even appreciate somebody through a digital certificates or digital smileys as well between peer to peer. Because a lot of time these small efforts that you do may not be getting qualified for a state level or a country level appreciation, and that may kind of discourage the people to think even small. But even small things contribute, and hence even an appreciation between a peer to peer or a boss to junior or a junior to a boss, all that is possible if you have such things in place, and that's the encouragement that you get on a day-to-day, that kick that you get to move forward.
So small example here, kind of the organization becoming back end and the front end. You know, the front end keeps on taking hit because the customer are touching that. So we had a lot of issues coming from the employees that while we are handling the customers, the back end is not doing their job rightly. So the idea came from that we have an in-house call center with us. So what we do now is that whatever the recordings of the calls are there, now it is being posted to every person across the organization, starting from CEO to the back end who deals with policies or dealing with new connections or protections. So all this fear, now they are understanding that the kind of conversation, because we are choking the channels with IVRS and WhatsApp and SMS, who is listening? And the listening posts are the ones who do not have a voice, as ma'am also said earlier. I think that's the engagement which is going very fruitful. The team is here today, where from top to bottom, all the customer-facing people are today to understand that. That's
so you're saying the senior management basically is also able to listen to what's actually happening on the ground. And
yeah. So every month we give 5 calls to all the CXOs, ranging from whatever the customer experience is coming or where their escalations are there. So they understand what is going on bad in the organization, which customer is making noise in all these avenues. So that has come up very well.
One thing I'll add is that we are all good at numbers, right? We are Indians. And operationally we'll drive the performance, the best performer, next performer, etc. Right? What we have done is we have taken in our organization, what we've done is we were entirely dependent on the verbatims coming out of VOC. You know, the survey is sent, customer is saying from their perspective, that perspective is very important. But when it's almost 15, 18 months now, we call it voice of process. It's really voice of employees, but around the process or the functional kind of a feedback. And then we join this VOCs, which is 2% response rate, so very less surveys. Now, voice of process, on a daily basis, you will say, why did we receive so many calls? Why did people land up into branch? So many people landed up into branch, etc. That insight, we started doing who is giving more insight, and therefore they get recognized as the best transformation guys inside the organization. Because I don't think we're sitting in the center office, people can say that this is what I think is the right for the customer. It has to come from, and when you are running an organization at scale, unless you have this gamification done, the inputs will not come through, because your front channel knows how to get it out of them is an art, in my opinion. Gamification plays a huge role in our case.
moving beyond the hypothesis to test it actually out. Okay, So one quick question before we wrap up. How do you see employee experience evolving over the next few years?
Yeah, I think probably we'll have to take a step back here just to rethink on how we engage. So when we, as a technology provider, right, when we get on a lot of transformational projects. So when we get on these transformation projects, some of the companies come back and talk about three important things. They talk about modernizing the platform, they talk about reimagining culture, and they talk about optimizing processes, right? And that's how they look at employee experience and probably making sure it's on the same stage or probably equated to CX. But a lot of times there are few things that really fails to meet our eye. Like for example, when I talk about customer experience today, the first thing that comes to my mind is Thanos snap, right? That's exactly the amount of time that we have to either impress or lose a customer. We have telecom players and banks, for sure they will agree to that fact, right? We have a very impatient customer bunch today. So you either support them immediately or they just going to move on to the next available best platform or technology in the market. Now, when you just go back and then look inside of your organization, what's happening, are our employees really enabled to take up this kind of customer bunch? The answer is maybe no, right? The simple fact that today when you look at, you have on the front end, you have your customer support teams, you have a sales and marketing team, but behind that lies the complex infrastructure, right, that connects them to legal, finance, and multiple other departments. So today, a lot of times, this ecosystem is completely broken. These teams do not talk to each other, right? So when the employee or the support agent who's on the front really needs an answer, he doesn't get the right answer. He's not empowered, number one. Number two, enablement is a big issue. Thanks to pandemic, we are all remote today. We don't train our employees the same way we did few years back, right? And the training is not just the same. And a lot of times they are not enabled enough. And three, probably the most important part, the experiences. As customers, we are today exposed to some great technology and support experiences in our personal life. Just imagine what an Amazon, Swiggy, or a PhonePe has done to us, right? It made our life so easy. And when we go to work, we take these habits and experiences. And as technology leaders, I mean, in fact, the employees expect that level of support even internally, right? And they want to get the job done, but they want to do it effortlessly. And that's where you find an imbalance between the CX and EX, right? So how do we really solve it? Before we even get onto the larger projects, probably the first thing that anytime we take up this transformation is work on the empowerment, enablement, and say the effortlessness with which your employees work in an organization. I think that's going a long way in making sure they get great experiences in their workplace, right? So in fact, just to quote with an example, otherwise it's a lot of gyan. So probably that's what we did with PhonePe. Just to give you example and take you a few years back, they were delivering about 40 million transactions pre-pandemic and say the demonetization. But just after these two events, from 40 million transactions, they grew to 290 million transactions. Imagine even if 1% of those transactions failed, the number of support queries that reps should have handled, right? They did not grow their support engine. They still had about 1,500 agents supporting this sudden volume and surge in growth, right? They had about 10x customers. So instead of doing a lot of things, a lot of complex stuff, they just asked us one simple question. How can I make the life of my support rep easy? So they started with the employer, not necessarily with the processes or anything else, right? With three simple features, they really automated a lot of stuff. Today, 85% of their mundane queries are answered, so their employees are used for better things. And today, they take up queries based on their skill and not necessarily answer something that is not important to them. So that's how they really transform their journey, right? But it's a long story. Probably we'll talk about it over a coffee. But right now, I'll leave you with this.
The kind of today the social media is making that one bad experience is going, to the hundreds and thousands of people. We take corollary of this, and now we have a WhatsApp group where all the customer facing from chief to the lowest level as on the same WhatsApp. So there are around 200 people. So any good and bad experience coming is flowing across the cadre so that the agility is promptly, that's the one aspect of the day-to-day life, because people carry worry and concerns when the customer is not dealt rightly and he raises the voice on the different platforms. On the second side, we are finding that the employees are putting an hours and two into different social media. So why don't we give our own social media messages on this when somebody likes the movie or somebody likes the outing or somebody has a good code to connect for children and things have, life experience. So that's the way we feel that to keep employees engaged with ourselves rather than they're going on a different medias to be for 24/7. Why don't they be with us in this frame of mind and they knows our values and they, by virtue of their cadres, they grow by education academically, but not by the cadres. But this experience goes across the cadres. That's the one experience. Thank you.
So I think if you look at it, maybe 2 years back, the kind of conversations that I used to have with the business heads and the HR was, does this guy have a 90-day plan? Does this guy have a 120-day plan? What is he delivering? I think the conversation has entirely shifted. Now business asks that whether the guy is empowered, is he trained, is she trained or not, is he or she is able to do it comfortable. So I think businesses have also realized that unless until their key employees or most of the employees are not empowered, trained and satisfied, they may not be able to deliver the kind of value they require. And that itself shows the kind of shift that is happening, that you need to have satisfied employee, empowered employees to deliver the kind of customer experience that you want.
I'll just end by saying one example. So, like Rajeev mentioned in his session that buzzwords are required. They bring us together as an organization. So we have a customer obsession program, and I felt that there'll be a lot of stuff, and I'm key stakeholder in that because I manage the inbound channel. So I felt that there'll be a lot of stuff that we'll be doing for customers there, and 80% of the effort are towards employees. And this is a very senior level program that we are managing right now. It's weekly report to MD, so there is senior management involvement in this program, and that is doing 80% of the work after going through what customer obsession mean to us, what we need to do to achieve that stage, is 80% effort on the employee. So I think the realization is that EX is definitely the more important. It is and EX first and then the CX. That is the realization that is happening. And one point I wanted to make was there is also an effort from this obsession program to take things that are working in one area of the organization into other. So in contact center, we have a this age-old practice, have a pre-shift huddle, okay, and a post-shift huddle, right? So very common, those who have worked in contact center will tell you that this pre-shift huddle is so important. It wasn't there in the branch. Now this customer obsession program created the 𝗶𝗁𝗃 is the name of the every branch today has a 𝗶𝗁𝗃 in the morning. Everybody, including the branch head, ops head, come at 9 o'clock. They are there, and they are having conversation about what can go wrong today. Today is the end of month, and customers are going to pay taxes, and if they can't pay taxes, they are going to have penalties. Now this is the conversation you had no forum. Now this is done at scale across organization, which was only possible in a centralized environment of contact center. So getting those best practices, putting it into the extremely difficult distributed side of the organization, I felt was a significant, this is 6 months, within last 6 months we've been able to do it. So EX is definitely a focus area.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have time for questions from the audience?
Yes. We have time, little bit of time.
All right, if anyone has any questions for the panel. How much time do we have? 5 minutes?
More like 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Any questions?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗵𝗆. I am blessed to manage the member experiences for 𝗘𝗶𝗁𝗆, which is a loyalty membership program for 𝗘𝗶𝗁𝗆hotels. Right. Where I need your inputs is, I 100% agree that it's very important for us to celebrate the customer deliverables that our agents, the consultants do. Right. where I want to share an experience is, at customer service levels, we feel that to give a negative feedback from a customer is comparatively very easy versus giving a positive feedback. So whilst we all speak about CSAT, which is a thumbs up and a thumbs down, we started driving members who take the effort and the pain to write in the feedback along with the thumbs up, right? I'm talking about positive feedbacks, right? So we started celebrating within the business wherein a member writes a nice text for the consultant who has interacted with him. However, what we realized is that this was getting driven like almost intentionally, that when you say that you're going to receive a survey form, you would say that please do write in something along with a thumbs up and a thumbs down, right? So how do we define that line wherein it's not, it's not like, it should be earned from the customer rather than just making him do that.
Okay, so I can relate to what you said, because we also have something called as TNPS, and you measure the touch point score and you get those verbatims. I think you are talking about the verbatims, and when you want to know more from the customer, you want to encourage the customer to get the verbatims, because you want to work upon that what actually made the customer happy. So I think some of the things is the one, obviously customer wants, and we all of us, we tend to become more excited to give a negative feedback rather than to positive feedback. That's the human tendency, because we don't want to take that effort of doing that. But then at the end, a lot of time this feedback is not to the organization, but to the person that you interacted with. And hence, the only way that we can ask that person to give more verbatim is when we can ask the person that this feedback will go to X person who actually helped you, and he will feel good if you can write about him. How was your experience with him? The moment we make it more broader toward the organization rather than to the person, then you start getting into that textual part of it. But the moment I say that you interacted with, let's say, Rahul, and your interaction was good, while you have appreciated him by giving a thumbs up, he will feel good if you can write just 2 lines about it, instead of just a thumbs up. So that encourages me, because I actually want my appreciation to go to that person and not remain as a digital number in the CRM. The moment I do that, I will feel, I will think to put another minute to write something about it.
I agree to what he says. Just to add to his points, right? It's more relook how we engage with our customers. Right? I'm going to talk more in a B2B context. Maybe you can try and relate to it. See, as a company, first thing that we did was to make sure we engage with our customers as partners and friends, and not necessarily just a service provider, right? So in every customer rep or every customer-facing employee, the first thing that we say is go and try and make sure the person whom you work with is successful and he gets what he wants from the organization, right? We look at the key KPIs, what is he trying to achieve out of the engagement that he has with us. So these are the questions that we put in their mind. So it becomes the entire experience both for the customer and the internal employee is that they strive and have one common goal, right? So they work together. So a lot of times they become one team and not necessarily a customer and a vendor. It's just a partnership here today, right? And that has really helped us in the way we have achieved great CSAT scores, and also some of the feedbacks have been really great. Today we have friends and not necessarily just customers or partners.
We can take one more question. There it is.
Good afternoon to the panel. My question is for Rajeev ji. So, and all senior colleagues sitting here. Well, I believe that, like, I just took some points from the speech you had, but I thoroughly believe that respect, recognition and reward in an organization works in that order. I mean, I believe and I make my team believe that too. And taking from your point, while recognition, which is in form of a certificate from HR, strives for that, right? Reward in terms of, again, tangible, the line managers strive for that. From the employee perspective, where I believe he strives for the respect first from the line manager, then from the management, how do you actually bring that to a shape and form in an organization? So that question is for you.
So my way of looking at it is that there are two ways of holding reviews and meetings. One is you do a very formal way. The cadres are there, and you listen most of the next piece, and the lowest cadres are just always the receivers. And even if they are sharing, their voice is not heard in the merits of that conversation during the meeting is felt by a good number of people. So the other way of doing is a very informal way of doing it, because what I'm saying is that over the last 20 to 10 years, that now the customer interface is becoming the ones who are the lowest ranks, and they are never being met by the CXOs during the life cycle, and their voices are only heard through the CSIs, and through those mediums we are listening in those forums. So the more we create an informal channels, like you find that today the Tata Power lowest person is in this conference room. So we carry the whole hierarchy as band, rather than saying that the top has to be given an opportunity to explore and understand. And that is like aerial view at 30,000 feet. That view doesn't go so well down the cadres. And that's the reason the more and more informal way has to come in today's world, because what I was saying earlier, that the IQ of average class is very high. It's only the EQ a differentiator, and then SQ is a differentiator, which makes you as a manager well, which make you as a CXO very well. So we need to have very informal way of communications. We don't need to create all these boundaries, and that's why the entrepreneurship and these things are growing, where the cadre differentiation is very, very minuscule, coming from 12, like Tata's also have gone down so well in single digit, and these kind of companies are hardly 3 to 5 levels. I think that's the way the young generation, the Gen X, whether it is customer or employees, looks more so informal, because the way we have grown, that we are away from the parenting, we are away from the relatives, because that's the formal channels. People are more on these channels which are informal. So we have to create the same thing within the organization, and that's how the happiness factor grows up in that. That's my take. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. This was really an engrossing discussion. So much gratitude to you all.